everyone, and thank you for joining us here on the Recruitment Roundup Podcast, which is brought to you by BMS Performance. For those of you that are joining us for the first time, BMS Performance is a specialist sales and marketing recruitment consultancy. For the last 30 years, we've been helping businesses across the UK recruit for vacancies at every level. I'm your host, Mike Leather, and every week I'll be joined by a new guest where we'll get stuck into the latest trends in regards to recruitment. We'll talk about insights, we share ideas, we share experiences, and ultimately we look to provide value to fundamentally help you, whether or not you're a hiring manager, a business leader, or part of an internal talent team, to recruit smarter, faster, and more effectively. Welcome everyone to another episode of the Recruitment Roundup Podcast. I am joined today by my colleague Ed Silipo, who is one of our managing consultants in our marketing division. Welcome back to the show, Ed.
Thank you very much, Mike.
Season 2. How are you doing?
I'm good. Great. Really keen to sort of get stuck into it and appreciate the call up for season 2. So it's always nice to be invited to these things.
Yeah, delighted to get you to get you back on. And this podcast today is aimed at, or is helpful to marketing managers, marketing directors, CMOs, even recruitment managers, internal recruiters who are hiring marketers. What we're going to talk about is, based on your experience, Ed, what the top 3 hiring challenges are that hiring managers are facing when recruiting for marketing vacancies at the moment. And you recruit across a broad spectrum, hence why we wanted to get you on to talk about this. But I wanted to start by asking you, what's the world of marketing recruitment like right now? We've experienced a lot of change in these last 7-8 months of the year across all markets. So I was curious to find out how the landscape in the world of marketing looks.
Yeah, and echoing what you said, like there's change within marketing recruitment. I think from our perspective, we've seen probably an increase in demand from event organizers who are looking to grow and build out their marketing teams. So the team are working on multiple projects for events businesses, which is a little bit different to where we were during the COVID period, where unfortunately events took a little bit of a hit. But now they seem to be growing and doing very well in the current climate.
What are you putting that down to?
I mean, speaking to hiring managers and and having conversations with candidates, the ability to put on in-person events is now back in the heart of what's going on. Flip it to 18 months, 2 years ago, there was a bit of a taboo around, can we get an in-person event without it going completely the wrong way because of COVID. There's more of a backing for people to want to meet in person. I know from my perspective, I'm trying to encourage candidates that we speak to now to come to our office to meet in person. It adds that personal touch. So if you flip that onto from an event perspective, you've got a great opportunity to network, great opportunity to engage with multiple different audiences. So I'm putting it down to that as part of the reason.
I get that. We've been pushing for more face-to-face meetings with the companies that we work with as well. But also, if I think about some of the more entry-level sales roles that we recruit for, and inside sales role, there's more of an appetite now to actually be in the office again. Like people enjoying that face-to-face aspect. And I wonder whether it's whether the idea of video meetings and hybrid work and everything is just starting to balance out. There's an appetite for it still, but that face-to-face element's definitely coming back into play, isn't it? And we're seeing that. It's a good thing, in my opinion. It's a good thing.
I agree. I think it's great to have that flexibility and being able to use video to meet and to have conversations whereby there might be a blocker on a face-to-face meeting, but especially in the industry that we work in, right? People buy from people. It's great to be able to put a physical face to the name, build those relationships. And being honest, quite like getting out of the office and going to a meeting, and also whether it's going to a coffee shop and grabbing a coffee with a candidate, it's a nice thing to do. So I'm putting that sort of people's the mentality shift of in person is a no. It seems to be becoming a bit of a norm now. So I'm putting that down to a little bit as to why the events world is booming.
Yeah, I wanted to ask as well about the candidate market. What's it like in the world of marketing? How would you describe it?
I would say that there's a good amount of candidates out there, but I think the real challenge that's facing businesses in where we're sort of adding that value is tapping into the candidates that maybe aren't necessarily open to work. We've got a lot of there's a lot of candidates across a lot of different industries with marketing that are actively looking, which is a good thing. But we're finding that companies are actually wanting more of the people that aren't necessarily on the market as such, which I find really interesting. But to sort of go back to your point, Mike, there is a good candidate market out there.
Yeah.
But to really find the candidate that's ticking all of your boxes for your recruitment drive, it's that little bit harder. You've got to go that extra mile. You've got to dig a little bit deeper to make sure that you're getting someone who's going to be meeting all of your needs for your hiring process.
Yeah, similar to other markets, the very best candidates generally aren't in the active talent pool. They're not applying for adverts. They need to be proactively approached, don't they? That's a nice segue there, Ed, in terms of what we want to talk about. So we're going to go into the top three hiring challenges that hiring managers face when recruiting for marketers. What's number one for you? And it's not in order of priority, but just what's the first one that you'd say you want to talk about?
I'd probably say salary expectations and the notion of a salary is probably one of, if not the biggest challenge we're facing in the market right now.
Okay, talk to me more about that. What are the biggest challenges companies are having with salaries and that impacting their ability to recruit?
I guess what we're seeing from so to sort of take it back a little bit. You obviously had the sort of, I'm going to call them the COVID years, for want of a better phrase, where you had a lack of workforce, coupled by, okay, you need to secure a candidate. Candidate salary expectations were, at an all-time high, given other economic factors as well. So you've got candidates who are, in a position that they've secured themselves a new role for considerably higher salary that they were expecting to begin with. What we're finding now is that 2 years on, which seems to be a relatively rough tenure for someone in B2B marketing. Obviously there will be people that stay 3, 4, 5 years, but if we look at that 2-year mark, you've got candidates who are already at a higher salary banding versus years of experience, and then a company's expectations of what they are going to get versus what's available on the market is very disfigured. And then I think, Mike, there's an element of companies potentially not necessarily having a full understanding of salary bandings for specific industries and job titles. So something that we've done for a few businesses of late is talk about salary benchmarking. A few businesses have come to us saying, look, we're not sure on where we're at. We've got a challenge around salaries and people moving on because they're not getting paid enough, or we're not securing the right talent because the salaries are a little bit, we're not competitive enough. So they've then come away and done some in-depth through partnering with us, through other methods. They've sort of mapped out what the market is actually saying for their roles. So I think it's a mix of inflated expectations of people that are in a role, coupled with companies maybe not necessarily having too much insight as to what competitors are paying and what the market is saying for roles specifically.
Yeah, especially if these companies have got a small marketing team, I guess they might not have recruited for a long time, so they come back to market without a full understanding of what it is that they need to pay, and then realise they're X amount short. I am curious just to ask about on this point, how much have salaries increased, like ballpark figure, would you say percentage in the last 2 years?
Ballpark.
This role specific.
Yeah, so I mean, if I look, I think probably the easiest one for me to maybe talk about without sort of causing too much controversy would be your sort of marketing executive position, and this is going off the type of marketing role that we've recruited for over the years at BMS. So a B2B marketing executive with 1 to 2 years experience in lead generation. That's the kind of marketing executive role I'm talking about here.
Yeah.
So, and Mike, sorry, what time frame were you looking for again?
Just in the last 1 to 2 years.
Yeah.
Just give people that are listening a flavour of like what that actual increase might have been.
So if you're looking a couple of years ago, 1 to 2 years B2B marketing experience you'd probably be looking at 27 to 30k.
Yeah.
Now, 1 to 2 years experience within B2B lead generation, you're looking at 30 to 35k.
Right.
So whilst I can't give you the specific percentage number, you can see that there's definitely been an increase, even at that second job position within marketing. So multiply that out across your more experienced hires, and people that, as you said, people that have gone to market 2 years ago or even a year ago are now coming to market with not being able to get what they were after, a year, 2 years ago.
I guess as well. So if you're a marketing executive, and let's say you've got your first job 2 years ago and you've got a job at 25, 26, 27k, you've done a good job and you've done well. You might have had a couple of pay rises in between, that time when you joined and now when you consider another opportunity. So you might already be on 32, 33 anyway by the time you come out to market. So then even 35 might not be that appealing. You might actually be pushing for 40.
And that's it. You've got, because, you're there for a couple of years, you meet your objectives, you meet your targets, companies will, if appropriate, have a conversation around salary. You're then going to market probably wanting, 5k increase, given, the economic circumstances at the moment. 5k probably gives you an increase, but also covers expenditure. So you're then battling with, okay, well, I want more money, but I don't necessarily have enough experience. And then same for companies as well.
Yeah. What you're talking before about passive candidates and active candidates. What are you finding people are looking for generally to move? So to give you an example, in my world of sales recruitment, on average, people are looking for at least 10% increase at least to move. I mean, we had a candidate today that was on 35, and the job offer that we've just got her is 50k, so she's got a lot more than that. Great day for her. But I'm just curious to find out what that looks like in marketing.
I'd say numbers wise, I think the minimum that people are wanting to, if we look at that sort of 35k as an example here, you're a 35k B2B marketer. Through conversations we're having, that the minimum expectation seems to be around getting sort of a 5k increase. So how can I get to 40k? But I think what we're finding more and more, especially in the candidates we're having to be a bit more proactive with, is that actually there's more to it than salary. Yes, an increase in salary would be good. But there are a few other factors as well that come into play when we're speaking to candidates now.
Yeah, I'm pleased you've said that, because I'm very mindful there'll be people listening to this thinking, well, my hands are tied. I need to recruit. I am going to be below the market rate. What can I do to be competitive against companies that might be paying a bit more than me. So what other parts of the package are candidates most interested in as well, alongside salary? What else are you seeing that candidates are looking for at the moment?
Progression. And it might sound, throwing the word progression out of there, what does that actually mean? Well, companies that maybe aren't as competitive on, if we're looking at a 5k difference, you've got one offer at 35k, you've got one offer at 40k. Companies that have a clear progression plan of you're coming in at this level, these are the KPIs and the softer skills we need you to demonstrate in order to have a conversation about getting you to level, from senior exec to marketing manager. We've then got a plan in place for marketing managers to get to senior marketing managers, and then from senior marketing manager to divisional head. And that's all mapped out, and it's part of the company ethos. That 5k difference doesn't actually mean anything, because a candidate's going, well, company A have got a really solid outlined plan with case studies internally to showcase that it's not just us saying this. It's been proven it works. Whereas, company B have offered me 5k more and on the surface a bigger job title, but I don't want to be a marketing manager in 3-4 years time. I want to be in a position where I'm working towards, I don't know, senior marketing manager or head of marketing. That's going to be really appealing to them. So I guess any advice to companies out there who are finding that they're getting pipped to the post by more salary, okay, well, how are you structured internally? What have you got in place to get this individual from senior marketing executive, marketing manager, whatever it may be, to either the most senior role within the marketing team in your business, or you're giving them the tools to when they get to that point and you can't offer them the senior marketing role, that they are so well equipped that the next application that they make, they'll get that job through the development that you've given them.
Brilliant. It's great advice, Ed. Really, really good advice for anyone that's listening to this. And there's going to be a lot of companies that are listening to this who are having a hard time. It's not an easy market out there that can't just go and splash the cash as much as they'd like to pay more than everyone else to recruit the top talents. That's really good advice. So I want to move on to talking about the second point which you wanted to discuss, Ed, which was process and how this can be a real challenge for companies that are recruiting marketeers. What are you seeing in your experience with regards to this?
A bit of a mix here, Mike. So bearing in mind, we work with a number of different companies across London, and interview process, I'm less naive than what I used to be. They're gonna vary from company to company. We have anything from 2 stages to 5 stages, depending on
5 stages.
I know, and it's some of these 5 stages are quite rigorous processes, right? But it's, I'm laughing about it now with you here, but it does actually impact, I guess, a candidate's buy-in, which is then ultimately going to impact, are you going to get the person that you wanted from round 1, or are you having to settle for your plan B, which, being honest, no one really wants to do. But, these long processes are a bit of a stumbling block. And I'm sure they would be for any type of industry and role. It's a hot topic right now, I'd say.
Yeah, and I must say, against people listening, I wasn't being sarcastic there with the laugh. It just surprised me. And for me, whenever I've worked with a client and they've got a really long, complex interview process, it's more about how quick they can get through it. To be fair, but if these 5-stage processes, for example, or even a 3-stage process are spread across a 4-week period, then you're just going to lose people at the end of the day, aren't you?
And this is it. Like, if you can tell me, Ed, I can do 5 stages in a week and a half, I'll be like, okay, that's a good thing and a bad thing, because some candidates might be put off that they've got to have 5 different processes in, 7 working days, right? I also then I then also have to sort of dive into a bit more. Okay, so why the 5? Because if I say to a candidate, like, the first question they ask me, I'm interested in this role. Okay, how many interview stages have you got? As soon as I say anything more than, I think 3, and we're already teetering on, okay, why is there a third stage? 3 is pushing it.
Yeah.
You say any more than that, and you've really got to justify why you're doing it.
Yeah.
I think if you can't make a clear decision within 2 stages, then you've really got to strip back. What are you actually doing at an interview process? Because there's clearly something there that's not working.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to chat to you about what can we do to help or give some guidelines on previous experiences. But much past 3, and you're losing out on especially 5, as you said, 5 over 4 weeks. That candidate has the opportunity to interview with 2, 3, 4 other places that will do a 2-stage interview, and they're going to be off the market.
Yeah, and candidates generally don't like interviewing. It's not something people enjoy doing. It's a nerve-wracking process at the best of times. I think my viewpoint on this is that the interview process has to be fit for purpose. So one that is enjoyable for the candidate and it challenges them to get the most out of it. But equally as important, it enables the employer to be competitive against their other employers in the market. And I think that's sometimes lost sometimes of certain hiring managers, because they think, well, we need this processing because we've got to cover all these stages, otherwise we can't be sure. Well, guess what? Your competitor down the road does a 2-stage process, and the recruiting is at the same sort of profile. So you're bang on in what you said.
It kind of links back to that. Like, how can you stay competitive if you haven't got the extra 5K? Training, development, and show a bit of love at an interview process. Do a 2-stage interview process that's done over a week and a half. That's thorough, but the candidate's going to feel that extra level of love, and they're going to feel wanted. And it's a common conversation that we have people think, oh, you're doing it to get a quick win. Well, not really. We're there to try and give the candidates the best view of you as a company. And if you want to get the best people, it's all about being willing to adapt and to change, really.
It comes into having a partnership based on trust, doesn't it, with your recruitment partner as well? And I'm curious, Ed, what's the typical life cycle of a candidate at the moment, from coming on the market to leaving the market? And now we're talking very broadly, but generally, what are you saying?
I would say generally, Mike, probably looking at around 3 weeks,
right? Okay.
Tops for a B2B marketer. Obviously, that's going to vary depending. The more senior you go throughout your process, it might be that it's longer than 3 weeks. But the average we're seeing is about 3 weeks from when we've met someone. Very good chance I call them up in 3 weeks' time and they'll tell me, Ed, I've got a new job. Thank you very much for your help.
Yeah, and I guess at the more entry level end of the spectrum, it's quicker. But then sometimes those people are generally interviewed based on characteristics and soft skills rather than actual qualifications. So it goes back to having a steady interview process, 2 stages, 3 marks. So if you can fit your more junior candidates into that, then we should really try and structure the process so that it's still that length for more senior candidates as well. But I was curious to get that because I wanted to link it back into the interview process. If what you're saying is good people are coming on and off the market within 2 to 3 weeks, then processes need not to take 4 or 5 weeks, because that's how companies are going to lose people. So that was a bit of advice that I was hoping people listening would take from that and maybe think about how their recruitment processes and length of interview processes look at the moment, and then how they could even consider amending them for the future. Okay, cool. What was the final point you wanted to talk about, Ed?
It was, I think, an important thing that's come up is companies might be not selling themselves in the best light at interview, Mike. And it might sound silly from a well, a candidate needs to sell themselves to us. They need to showcase to us that they are who we need and what we need. But there are a lot of opportunities out there. So if
Yeah.
you're not positioning your company as well as you should, again, you're sort of impacting your ability to secure the person you want to at interview.
Yeah. How many times, let's say in the last 3 months, have you experienced a candidate taking another job because they were more sold on that rather than maybe an opportunity that you'd had them out for, where they felt the interview was a bit overly professional, let's say, and I mean that in the right sort of context, so they didn't really get much of a personality, feel much of a vibe for the person that they were meeting.
I mean, last week we had a candidate turn down an offer that we had for them based on that exact thing.
Right.
They didn't feel that the company was right for them, and you drill down into it and go, okay, why?
Yeah.
And the other offer that they received, they spent more time with them, sort of talking about company values, the culture, and what their vision for the
Okay.
role and where that role is going to sit in with the business. I
Right.
think that, rightly or wrongly so, businesses have your standard interview questions and your process that you need to follow, which I totally get. It's there for a reason. But a company missed out on a great candidate because they didn't want to sort of break away from that mold and add a bit more of a personal touch.
Yeah. What could that company have done more, do you think, in this example to impress that candidate?
I mean, the talk about sort of vision for the company. If a candidate is genuinely interested in the role, they may not ask what is the vision for the company or what are the plans for the company in the next 6 to 12 months time. What I'd be advising clients to do now is probably talk about that at first round and bring it up themselves, because when you've got candidates that've got a number of options out there, you want to be that proactive company that goes, right, this is what we're actually going to be doing over the next 6 to 12 months. This is our plan. This is where this role fits in. And already at stage one, the candidates, typically when this happens, call us up and go, wow, they're very forward thinking. They clearly know what their plans are. I'm interested. I want to be a part of that. I guess then if you're necessarily not in a position to sort of divulge that at stage one, it's probably talking about really sort of having some non-generic culture points is how I describe them, because
Right. Okay.
you can go through, we've got the classic, we've got a good culture. This is why you should join us. I'm probably paraphrasing a bit too much there, but if you're talking about culture, give examples of why your culture is something that should warrant someone joining you.
Yeah.
And then I also talk about, and it depends on the size of the marketing team, but it's also applicable for sales, right? Is case studies of success.
Yeah.
Is what I label them
Yeah. I
as.
really like that idea.
And
Yeah.
if you've got someone who did the job and they've gone on to do other things within the business or for another company, bring it up. Showcase to that individual what joining the company is going to do for them long term. These are all little things that you can do to make sure that the candidate comes away from that interview going, wow, okay, if you take a marketing as an example, the last marketing manager that worked there 3 years, developed their team management responsibilities, and has then gone on to get their first role as a marketing leader for a tech startup. As an example, you've got a candidate who's already going, well, that's what I want. This company can give me that. And it's just making sure that you're talking as much, it sounds silly, but you're talking about what you can do for someone, because I think
Yeah.
we spend probably more hours at work than we do with family, friends when you break down the working week. So you want to make sure that you're giving people the opportunity to learn where they can go through joining your business.
I think, yeah, this is such good advice. And again, I'm going to hark back to the more junior end of the candidate market. So if, let's say, a marketing executive might be a graduate or have a year under the belt, we have to remember that they're not going to have the interview experience or even sometimes the commercial now to ask these types of questions. So they won't ask it. So you've got to be in a position where you're thinking, right, what if we want to recruit someone that's this type of profile? What do we think is important to them when they're joining a company? Like you said, culture is massive, isn't it? Culture, progression, seeing that they're on the path to go in somewhere, maybe additional learning, qualifications, whatever it might be, and then think about what are the highlights we're going to talk about to sell our company to this type of candidate. And that's from what you're saying, that seems like the difference between the companies that sell themselves really well and those that aren't. And I guess to finish off with, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here. What's the most innovative thing you've seen a company do to sell themselves to a candidate?
I would say if we were looking at it from an innovative perspective, Mike, we partner with a business called Hanson Wade for marketing recruitment. And I really like their second stage interview process that they do. So what they do as a business is they give the candidate an opportunity to meet and interview people from different departments within the business.
Oh, wow. Never heard that before.
So they call it the Wade dip. And in essence, you sort of have an intro and a conclusion. But then you get to meet people from sales, from operations, from marketing as well. And it's very, break it down. It's quite simple. Get someone to speak to different people within a department, right? But what you've then got, you've got 5 different people talking to you about the culture of the company that they work at, how that person interacts with different departments. And the candidates come off that call going, I don't really have any questions left for the business. I just want to go in and really smash my presentation. So I guess from an innovative perspective, it sets them apart from other people.
Absolutely.
And candidates love it.
Yeah. I've never heard of that before. That's a great way to finish the podcast. So hopefully people listening, I've got a lot of value from that. Some ideas, some perspective based on your experience, Ed. So yeah, great advice shared there, and thanks for coming on. Really appreciate it.
No worries at all. Thanks for having me. And look, I say this to everyone that I speak to. Any advice, or even if it's a quick chat about the market or how you should go about hiring, or if you're looking for a job and you want some advice, connect with me on LinkedIn. More than happy to have a conversation.
Great. Good stuff. Right. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and we'll look forward to you joining us again next week. Bye for now. Well, that wraps up another episode of the Recruitment Roundup podcast. Thank you very much for listening to the show, to watching the show. We really appreciate your support. It would be absolutely fantastic if you could give us a rating on Apple, on Spotify, give us a review. Any feedback really helps and is massively appreciated. So thank you once again for joining us, and we will hopefully see you again next week.